What are you going to say? So you got a brand new camera and lens for the holidays, and I bet you're super excited to go shoot with it. And why wouldn't you be? That's the reason why you asked for it in the first place. And if you got a camera and lens bundle in the same box, you are now the proud owner of what we call a kit lens. Now, buying new gear is always fun, and when you do, it should be at B&H. But I want you to get as much as you possibly can do out of these first lenses. And to do that, I'm going to teach you a few tips, whether it's in photography or videography, to take your first lenses to their fullest of fullest potential. So why don't we get started? We're going to start with photography, and I have an a6700 from Sony here, along with their 16 to 50mm, the Mark II version. And this is a really versatile lens. You have 16mm, which is really wide, and 50mm, which gets you into that mid to telephoto range. So you have a lot of versatility here. And as this is a kit lens, we do have a variable aperture from 3.5 to 5.6. So basically what that means is from 16mm, the lowest aperture will be 3.5. And then as you zoom, that number will increase till eventually it will be 5.6. The aperture is this number on the screen here, and it usually has an F before it. The lower the number is, the more light the camera lets in to hit the sensor, and you also get a shallower depth of field. That means the things that are further away from your subject get blurrier the lower the number is. Let's take these two images side by side. One of them is at f10 and one of them is at f1.2. Now at f10, everything is in focus from your subject to your background. Whereas at f1.2, the subject is in focus, but that background is super blurry. Now, is this 16 to 50 the fastest lens? No, not really, but that actually might be a blessing in disguise. The biggest mistake I see new photographers do is get something like a 50-1.8, for example, and then shoot everything wide open at f1.8. Having a blurry background is super pleasing to the eye, do not get me wrong, but in some cases it really takes away from the photo, especially in street photography when you want to have context of where you're shooting. If the background is completely blurred out, it really takes away from the environment that you're shooting in. Don't be afraid to bump that aperture number up. The actual sharpest point of your lens tends to be between f8 and f11. So if you have enough light in the scenes that you're shooting, give f8 or f11 a go, and you might be really impressed with the results that you get. Another great thing to experiment is if you want to add depth to your image, try adding things in the fore and background so you get a more three-dimensional look. For example, I could take a plain portrait like this and it looks great, but let's add something to the fore and background just to add that extra bit of dimension to your image. Now, have you ever seen a photo of a place and thought, that is incredible? So much so that you've organized to go there on a trip, but when you get there, not only does it look nothing like the photo that you've seen, but the place is full of people. Well, that could be because you're there at the wrong time of day, for example, the middle of the day, and you could also be there in the wrong season. So if you're there in the middle of the day, the lighting will be extremely harsh and the sun will be right over your head. The key thing to do is research beforehand to see whether the place you want to go is best at sunrise or sunset, as that'll be when it has the best lighting conditions. And look, I know getting up at the crack of dawn to go take a photo isn't for everyone, but trust me when I say, when you get that shot that you've been dreaming of and no one else is around, there really isn't a feeling like it. A really great way to improve your photography fast is if you just go around your local area and say we have a 16 to 50 here, treat this as if it was a prime lens. So only shoot your local area at 16mm. And then the next time you go out, zoom in a little bit and only shoot it at 24mm. And keep doing this until you reach 50mm. And if you do this a few times, not only will you get a wide variety of images, you'll actually find out what your favorite focal length to shoot at is, and also it'll help you improve your compositioning when you're shooting wide angle, or if you're shooting a telephoto shot, what looks best for that. Finding those leading lines to draw your subject into the frame when you don't have compression of telephoto at 16mm, for example. So you can just go around, shoot your local area, but get thousands of photos. And it is so exciting when you come back in and then you have all of the photos at 16mm, all the photos at 24, 35, 50 in exactly the same spot, but it looks so different. And you just be able to get a whole new appreciation for the area that you live in as well, which is always a bonus. And finally, I would just say, take your camera absolutely everywhere with you. Just shoot it non-stop. And then not only you're taking more photos, you're practicing, so you're just gonna get better and better. Operating this will become second nature, so it will get out of the way. And then you'll start seeing things and be going, that's a great shot at 16mm. I can get an amazing telephoto shot there. And just having that intuition will just become second nature. The joy of photography is just so much fun. And if this is your first camera, which is a step up from your smartphone, it's a whole nother experience than just whacking out your phone, taking a picture with a click of pressing a shutter button is the best feeling in the world. So enjoy it. If you have any more tips, you have any more questions, let us know down below. We're gonna switch over to video. I hope you've enjoyed those photography tips, but stick around because you might learn something in the video world as well. And if you've skipped to this part because you're a video shooter and you just wanna hear the video tips, first off, hi, welcome, and I'm hoping you're enjoying your first lens as much as your photography counterparts are. And let's jump straight into some tips to get the most out of your first lens. And for our video examples, I'm going to be using the Canon R50V with this 14 to 30mm f4 to 6.3. But all of these tips transfer no matter what camera and lens combination you have. And the focal range of 14 to 30 is really nice for video because it's plenty wide enough that you can still vlog, for example, but you're able to punch in as well to get some of those detail shots, which is really nice. Similar to the Sony lens, we have a variable aperture from f4 to f6.3. So at 30mm, it's not the fastest, but we can still get some great results if we try out a few things. First off, I would recommend getting an ND filter. And now this works like sunglasses for your lenses. And it allows you to drop your shutter speed down to just double your frame rate so you get more natural motion blur. Now on your lens, it will show you what size filter you need for that specific lens, but I would recommend getting one bigger. So most lenses like a 24 to 70, 2.8, 16 to 35, they have a 82mm filter thread. Some are a little bit smaller, some are larger, but I usually find that you're covered with an 82mm filter, and then you can get step-up rings, so then you can just use that one filter on all of your lenses, which is a lot more cost effective than getting a filter for each individual lens. Now, admittedly, this is just letting you change some settings on your camera, but it will show you how good of an image you can get out of these really affordable lenses, rather than thinking you have to go and spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on a new lens to improve the quality of your image. With these more affordable cameras and lenses, their autofocusing capabilities aren't the fastest that most camera brands have to offer. So to make sure that you nail focus every time, I would recommend changing the focus area on your camera. Probably out of the box, the camera is set to whole area autofocus. And now this works a lot of the time, do not get me wrong. But if you're walking through a busy Central Park, for example, and there's a ton of people, the camera might pick up on a face in the background and shift focus to them. So I would recommend changing to something like expand spot or something like that. This way you can tap the screen to where your subject is, but you have a little bit of room around it, so if they move slightly out of direction, it's always going to lock on to their face. And this way your camera and lens are only paying attention to that little square that you've picked, rather than trying to scan the whole of the sensor to see where they need to focus. And doing this will guarantee focus a lot more, but it'll also help you pay attention to framing about where you want your subject to be in your composition. Next up, we have to talk about the most important thing in filmmaking that I find when you first start doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion anyway, and that of course is lighting. So take a look at these two shots. Both of them are taken at the same full frame equivalent focal length at around the same settings. One of them is taken on a full frame professional camera with a top of the line lens, and the other is taken on the R50V with this kit lens. And notice how the kit lens looks so much better because we've added additional lights to that image. And no, I'm not saying go out and spend thousands of dollars on lights. That's completely unrealistic. But just research how light is used and how light behaves in order to manipulate your image to how you want it to look. So for example, if you don't have any lights, but you want to film at home, I recommend setting up next to the biggest window that you have, either straight on or at a slight angle, so you get a nice soft diffused key light from the sun coming into your apartment. That will look way better than if you have no windows or anything like that, and you have to bump up the ISO and get a really grainy, flat, just gross image. We have a ton of videos that you can go check out on lighting on our YouTube channel, so go check them out and you'll be getting way better results from your kit lens in no time at all. Now, this next tip might not work with all lenses, but if you have a power zoom like this one, you can create a really cool effect pretty simply, and it's just fun to do. It's called a dolly zoom, and basically what happens is your subject stays in frame, filling up the same amount of frame, but the background shifts and distorts, creating this really kind of disorientating effect. You might have seen this more recently in things like Severance. When done right, it's really cool, and to achieve it, it's actually pretty simple. So we want a consistent zoom in, and that's where the power zoom comes in, because it is electronically zoom in and you can control the rate in which it zooms by using this rocker. So punch in all the way to the telephoto end and frame up your subject, and then as you walk closer, you zoom out. Pretty simple, but there are a few things you need to keep in mind. One, I would recommend either getting a gimbal or a slider, because this is pretty difficult to achieve handheld. It's possible, but it's pretty difficult. So there are a few tips on how to get the most out of your kit lens, both in photography and videography. And this will not only help you find out what kind of photographer and videographer you are, but also help you what focal length that you really enjoy shooting at, so that when you're looking to buy your next more professional lens, more faster lens, you'll have more idea of what you want to buy rather than panic buying a 24-70 or 7200 because your friend has one. And when you get that next lens, you'll find that the world just opens up a bunch of more possibilities that you wouldn't have thought of if you jumped straight in and you bought that lens day one. You can get so much out of these and really get amazing results and just have fun with it. That's why kit lenses and affordable lenses exist, is for you to experiment and get into the craft of photography and videography. And if you want to know more about how lenses can affect your image, Sam will be going into a much deeper dive into that very topic on the B&H YouTube channel very soon. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I've been Matt. Thank you so much for watching. Go out and shoot, enjoy your lenses and your cameras, and I'll see you in the next one.